I call to order the regular city council meeting for this Monday, July 20th. Let's start with the roll call, please.
Lessem. Here. Fuller.
Here.
Janser.
Here.
Locken. Here. McMartin.
Here.
Quadrigula.
Here.
Samuelson.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Item 3 is the mayor's report. I have a very brief report tonight. I just want to let everybody know there have been a lot of important activities in the community here in the last couple of weeks. I attended 3 changes of command for officers out at the Air Force Base, both wing commanders and the missile operations group commander. We had an opportunity to meet with Marshall Stewart, the new president of NDSU, and that was a good gathering. We had a good representation of Minot leadership, and thanks to the chamber for sponsoring that event. Also, today attended a meeting of the North Dakota State Fair Board and the All Seasons Arena Board, kind of a combination of those 2 boards. I was asked to bring the thanks from the State Fair Board to the city and the staff for working out the lease that they have for parking some trailers and equipment on one of the spots over off Central Avenue that was acquired for flood control. Very grateful, and they say it's working out great since they're a little bit landlocked out there in their area. And that concludes my report. Any questions for me? All right, seeing none, we will move on to section 4, starting with the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As is the norm, my report is attached. I'll stand by for questions, but first I'd just like to highlight our Employee Recognition Committee, an outstanding job that Jesse Hoffert and team did with putting on our annual Employee Appreciation Week and the picnic. It was great to see everybody together. Handed out a lot of awards to our outstanding staff and a lot of longevity service awards to our teammates. So that was a really great event, and I really appreciate the Employee Recognition Committee for putting that together.
All right.
And if there are no questions for me, I'd like to invite up Brecca Kramer, President and CEO of the Minot Area Chamber and EDC, and she will present her report this evening. Brecca, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Janssers and members of City Council. Thanks for allowing us to come in and give a mid-year report. Part of our contract with the City of Minot is to give an update on just the progress that has been made through the Minot Area Chamber EDC with the efforts that we lead for the community and specific to the contract with the City of Minot. Next slide, please. So our mission is to advocate and invest in business activity by being a collaborative partner in the community, focused on improving the quality of life for all. We talk a lot about the partnerships and work, and really it's an all-in team effort. It's not just for the City of Minot, but the region, and we continue to work to advance economic prosperity for our region. With our mission, our vision statement, next slide, please. We do serve as the go-to organization on driving a lot of key initiatives, and I won't read all these verbatim, but I do want to go to the next slide, please. We function with the support of a number of volunteers. We have hundreds of volunteers that support the Minot Area Chamber EDC to execute and do what we do. We don't do it without them. And leading the effort is our board of directors. Our 2026 board chair is Jared Lundeen, a business owner here in the community. And you can see the lineup of others that serve our community. It's a good representation of some of the utilities, our other strategic partners. And I do want to call out that Mayor Janser does represent the City of Minot on our board of directors. directors as a voting member with the contract that we have with the city. We also receive funding to support economic development for Moore County, and Commissioner Jason Olson serves as that representative. The rest of them are elected to up to two 3-year terms and are serving those out at this time. Next slide. So our team, just to give you a line of sight on kind of who is part of the team, you can see it here. I want to call out that I do have Mark Lyman, our economic development specialist, with me here this evening. He really leads a lot of the efforts in that space and is a good strategic partner, I know, with the City of Minot on a number of different fronts. You can see the rest of the team, and I do always want to call out our motor vehicle department as well. That is a team that we manage through a contract with the North Dakota Department of Transportation. We have a 5-year contract with them to provide that service for our region. Next slide. We talk a lot about the strategic plan. I'm only going to focus on 3 of the 5 key pillars. We set out in 2023 with this plan, and we often refer to it just because that is really kind of our guiding principle. So we work in 5 key areas. The ones that the City of Minot supports are economic development, workforce development, and military support specific to Task Force 21. Next slide. So if we look at economic development, as we've shared with you in our year-end report and with our regular updates that we provide to the city each month, we really are focused on macroeconomic efforts. And with this, there's been a couple of key things. The logistics is one of the key ones. And I'm happy to report that in year 4 of 5, which with our business incentive agreement with the City of Minot, we're on track to meet those deliverables. That timeline kind of hit during the spring of this year, and so there will be a full review of that. And we are seeing exponential growth at that site, which is great to see. We're actually more than 5 years of operational service and success, and we're exceeding what we anticipated and set out to do when we started this program over 5 years ago. It's a continued service not only to the Minot area, but really to the state of North Dakota. It's the only intermodal site in our state, and it allows us to move commodities directly to the ports of Tacoma and Seattle, and then to global markets. We also are working on a lot of key areas. One of them is access to natural gas. One of our biggest barriers to development and large-scale development is access to natural gas. And with that, even with our proximity to Bakken, that is something that we're hyper-focused on. Not only does that help to serve and support the production of the Bakken, which is becoming a little bit more mature of a play, but it also is helping to support large-scale projects. We are working diligently with North American Iron, which is the pig iron facility that would be tied in with our logistics park in North Dakota. And the land out there's other options on land surrounding that to be able to complete that project. We've been hosting from January through June, which is this report, numerous meetings with city officials, working through the water usage, how we can use wastewater and actually help the city. There's a lot of ongoing meetings with a number of the team members, city manager, and others of your department heads are very engaged in this project. When we're working $3 to $4 billion projects that could have a major change in an industry, bringing it to the state of North Dakota, there's a lot of partnerships that are needed. We're in the process right now of working through some of the final agreements on it to continue the process, and then we'll have more in the second half of the year when it comes to updates on the permitting with DEQ with the state. There's the initial works being started there. We're continuing to work hard with WBI Energy, which is the lead entity on the Minot Industrial Pipeline, which is the natural gas pipeline that'll move from Tioga to Minot as part of this project. And then you'll see as we go down the road, I won't cover it a lot here, there's additional work there tied in because there's potential for additional end users for that pipeline. We are also working through supply chain projects, not only with the Department of War, but also other key entities. With that, we know that we're preparing for major modernization projects, and I'll cover a little bit more of that under the military support pillar. And then when we look through, we know some of the hot topics are tied in specifically to data centers and AI. We're working really hard to determine and understand these industries and make sure that we're doing everything we can to understand what the requests are, what's that look like. We haven't taken an active position on it, but we know that as the Chamber EDC, we need to be a part of those discussions. So we're following closely the legislative interim committee that was stood up this summer. I think the first meeting was last week. Minot is set to host the next meeting here in August, and we'll continue to look at this from a national standpoint, from a state standpoint, Minot, working with you as a city and also our county partners to see where do we fall on this and what does that look like. And so there's numerous meetings and discussions with utility partners and vetting these through to see, is that a fit for our state? And so more to come on that, but there's been several meetings that have taken place over the first half of this year. And then, of course, we continue to work with our entrepreneurs through our Startup Minot program. We also are vetting through some other programs that could support that. And our report for the halfway through the year with our business retention and expansion report is included in your packet as well. And with that report, you're going to see kind of where the businesses that we met with 21 businesses in the first half of this year, where they feel the city and the area is doing well. You're going to see the airport, the first responders, police and fire, and even our parks rated as the highest. As we were doing well in the investments there isn't a gap. Where we see some opportunities, of course, is no surprise, it's in childcare and health, or in housing. And so workforce pipelines, we hear a lot about that. But these are really good, this is good information for you to, as we're reaching out to employees that have over 900 employees in our region, you'll kind of get a sense for what their position is on development. And we feel this is a pretty critical exercise that we do every year to provide that feedback to you. Who's expanding? What businesses are mature? Where do they have gaps or needs? And so that report is included in the report we provided to the city. And then as we look at our regional growth and partners, we're continuing to work, obviously, with the City of Minot, Visit Minot, and a number of strategic partners, not only on the data side, which is a contract that we have through some of the work with the Economic Development Committee. I know Alderman Blessum served on that committee when we selected a firm. We're still pretty, nothing ever moves as fast as we want it. So there's still development in there, but we're still continuing regular bi-weekly meetings to ensure that we're getting the right data. I know Visit Minot, not to speak on Stephanie's behalf, but is happy kind of with where they are. And as we look ahead to the 27 budget, I know that's not the presentation we're here for today. It is something we want to continue to see. We want to give it the time it's needed to, so we have that tool and resource. So we appreciate your guys' investment there, but there's been numerous meetings working to develop that out in partnership with the city and Visit Minot. And then as we work at some of these other efforts, the North Dakota Rural Electric Cooperatives actually funded and supported North Central Regional Grocery Store and Local Food Hub Initiative. There's one of the first kind of events that they held in this space was actually in Velva, which would be in our area, and that was last week. And then as we're looking through these partnerships, we just wrapped up a report, which we'll have more for you guys that we'll be sharing here soon. But in the first half of the year, the work that we're doing with the Center for Rural Innovation, that's really looking to see how Minot, North Dakota can be positioned as a tech hub and what that looks like, and how do we look at the pipeline, how are we supporting development in that space, and what does that look like? So we've had a small investment there, and it kind of set the baseline for our community, and we're going to see where the second half of the year we'll do some work in that space. Next slide, please. So in our workforce development, as you guys know, we continue to work a number of different efforts. We've really we continue to have our Wayfinder program, which is almost like our ambassadors that are not only welcoming young airmen, but it's families, it's boomerangs coming back to our community. It's just a nice touch point to make sure that we're rolling out the red carpeting, providing them the resources needed as they're looking at our community. And of course, we have strategic partners. We have our workforce committee, the City of Minot Child Care. We've been a partner as far as on that and served on that. And then we continue to support the state of North Dakota's Find the Good Life campaign. We don't know where that's going to go this next legislative session, but we're actively involved in the efforts that are underway by the state of North Dakota today. Obviously, the last, I think it was just last meeting, you guys supported the Magic Fund request for Minot State University. As we look at these innovation engineering programs and how do we form out and bring the pipeline here for some of that'll support our workforce, that was an effort that we worked on through the first half of the year, and actually some of that work started late 2025. And then, of course, we continue to put out information to market the community and attract the workforce, that workforce pipeline, through some of the resources that we make sure are up to date and provided out into the community. Next slide. And then as we get into Task Force 21, we appreciate the funding. You're going to see that in the work that we do with military support, there's a component that really kind of falls under our chamber member investor side. There's not city funds into that effort. That's going to be your Right Start presentations, even though we call that out. We want to give you a line of sight, though, on how many new airmen are coming into the community. So we brief out on the community. I think it's just under 500 airmen in that program. We do that once a month. If you're a first-time airman coming to Minot, we're a part of the Welcome and the Required program that the Air Force Base puts on. We also raise funds through our Prairie Warrior auction. Again, that goes to support squadrons. That is not work that the city per se is funding, but it is a big effort and a lift by the team. But I want to maybe highlight more so the strategic and community engagements here. We hosted our North Dakota Nuclear Triad Symposium in April and had almost 200 attendees from all across the state, and actually some flew in from other states as well to attend. We had the 4-star general with Air Force Global Strike Command, General Davis there, along with briefings from the threat environment and what we're seeing on a national stage when it comes to national security, these modernization projects, and where we're going with that. We want to make sure that we're not only doing this work in DC, but also educating leaders across the state of North Dakota. So that was a very successful event that we're looking to do every other year during non-legislative years. So that took place in April. We also are a part of a couple other key strategic engagements out in Washington, D.C. I have the honor of serving as a U.S. Air and Space Force civic leader. Mayor Janser is actually a emeritus member of that organization. We're the only two from North Dakota that are tied in with that program at this time. And with that, we also have task force members that are a part of, we have 4 serving as Air Force Global Strike Command civic leaders. So they've been in a number of strategic meetings and engagements, a lot of virtual ones too, with our Global Strike Command, which is the command that oversees Minot Air Force Base. We also have 3 serving as Strategic Deterrent Coalition board members, and we hosted in partnership with the Navy and Air Force symposium in DC this spring. And then we're tied in with the Association of Defense Communities, and with the ADC, we were a part of, I serve as a co-chair for the Air and Space Force Defense Community Council, and so we actually lead a lot of the conversations in Washington, D.C., along with our Space Force partners regarding communities, modernization, energy needs, and what's kind of coming through what we see the Department of War, Department of U.S. Air and Space Force. We had the honor, too, of serving on one of the main stages following Senator Kramer, and alongside, I was on a panel with our 91st Missile Wing Commander. Modernization projects are a key topic that we continue to lead. Our Sentinel Working Group has stood up and has been very active, working to prepare for the replacement of the Minuteman III missile system. So there's been a lot of strategic engagements. You can see there's been over 50 plus in-person or virtual engagements just in the first half of this year. We're obviously working with the state of North Dakota too. We've raised funds privately. We have the City of Minot support for Task Force 21, but the state of North Dakota also through the Base Enhancement Program, which was approved this last legislative session, is providing some funding. You can see we just got, we're in the process of finalizing out the contract, but it's a little over $500,000 for the biennium to also support these strategic efforts that we're doing, which also helps lower the requests that we have from the City of Minot. And then we're working very closely with the City of Minot on a contract that is under the city through OLDCC, which is the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation Program, and all the acronyms. But really, this compatibility use study will be underway until June of next year. There will be another series of public meetings coming up, probably sometime after the first of the year. But we're really looking to prepare and work not only with local municipalities, Warwick County has been a strategic partner, Service Basin Planning Council, but also with townships and leadership that our missile complex has touched. So a lot of work going underway there. It's been since 2015 since we updated that, so within the first half of the year, there's been a lot of work on this compatibility use program. And just as a reminder, the economic impact to Minot Air Force Base, it's our largest employer. It's almost $1 billion, which is up from fiscal year 2024. It was like $651 million. It's almost $1 billion today. We're going to continue to see growth with all these projects that are surrounding Minot Air Force Base. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done from a community standpoint to make sure that we're prepared for not only for our region, but for the state. So that's kind of just a highlight of some of the things that have happened in the first half of the year. Our team provided a full report. There's a lot of more further detail included in there, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brecca. Alderman Pardugula.
Two questions, one a specific and the other general one. In terms of the gas pipeline, we have natural gas here. So is this simply more capacity and a redundant capacity?
With the current provider, we are not able to provide the volume of natural gas that's needed for large-scale development. You're going to see the state of North Dakota investing in the Bakken East pipeline. Our pipeline, which is called the Minot Industrial Pipeline, is a new pipeline to be able to provide the capacity that's needed. And Alderman Pardugula and members of City Council, what we're also going to see is at some point, WBI Energy will go out, which they call open season. It's not a hunting term. It is where they will look for other end users and other potential projects for that. And with the Minot Industrial Pipeline, there's two main pipelines that the state's working on. The state is supporting the Bakken East pipeline. Our pipeline is coming through because of the project, but no matter what, we're going to continue to focus and make sure we build that pipeline here because it's critical, really. The energy discussions that we're seeing in DC especially, when we're out there, a lot of times it's tied to our Air Force Base, Department of War, and right now modernization is a key component of it while sustaining the current missions. More and more, we're seeing our conversations also tie in with the Department of Energy because reliable energy is critical for installations. There's obviously high energy needs with what we're seeing nationwide with AI data centers, and that's why we're diving in really deeply to see what fits for our state, what fits for our area, and where do we land on some of these. But yes, with the current, we do have natural gas here, but nowhere near the capacity of what we need.
Will this be separate or related to the one that Grand Forks wants to get?
Grand Forks, if the Minot Industrial Pipeline and the Bakken East Pipeline, they would have options to tie into either of those. It would be further down the road. So I think that Grand Forks and Minot have been aligned that originally some of the discussions were along Highway 2, building from Tioga to Minot to Grand Forks. Through some of the state effort, the legislative body, and other development projects, and some of the the data centers going out east, and some of the utility providers leaning in heavily too. The state moved to the Bakken East pipeline, but the work is still underway. And yes, other communities like Grand Forks are certainly looking for access to natural gas.
So it could help both sets of communities if this is built?
Yes.
Okay. And the second question is a more general one, and I, in a way, hate to ask this, but I think I feel obligated to. I have something like 16 emails on my computer, people complaining about and raising questions about property taxes and general spending in the city. And they often make mention of economic development. And many people, or a significant number of people, at least the ones who have contacted me, feel this is, quote, wasteful spending, close quote, and that we're not getting anything for our money. Sometimes they specifically mention the funds we allocate to the chamber. Sometimes they just speak of economic development in general. And I feel an obligation to give them a response. What also makes it, I think, more serious is that several members of the council have spoken repeatedly about economic development and have described it in fairly negative terms. Recently, it was mentioned that the community has lost population, and then that's apparently a sign of the failure or the shortcomings of these efforts. So based on what some of my colleagues have said and based on what some people in the community have been saying, how would you respond to that? And I want to ask this, we've spoken in the past privately about these kinds of things, and I've accepted what you've said at face value, but given the popularity of this view, or at least 16 people, I feel obligated to ask you for a public kind of response. How would you respond that economic development efforts, which take place largely at this point through the chamber and Mr. Lyman, that they're wasteful of taxpayer dollars, that they're not effective?
Well, thank you for the question, Alderman Pardugula, Mayor Janser, and members of City Council. development just doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't just arrive on your doorstep. You need somebody that is waking up every day, working to promote your community, work these major projects, and work on economic development. That's what we do. It's one of those things where we made the announcement last October about the North American Iron Project, the pig iron project that's going to support the U.S. steel industry. We were working that years in advance. That was originally announced in a different community. That alone with potential for how they would utilize wastewater has the opportunity to save the city, I won't say a number, a lot of money. Also too, all of our work is really, we're in the economic development space, we're working to grow the tax base, which is why we have programs that support, the large scale projects get a lot of attention, but if you look at the 80 plus graduates that have gone through our Startup Minot program, the Startup Minot Academy, we're training entrepreneurs. We're supporting development at all levels. Now, we don't spend a lot of time, I know through the Economic Development Committee that Alderman Blessum chaired, there was a lot of discussion about, retail attraction and that work. We're not spending our days going out and trying to get another retail to compete with some of our member investors. We are, though, working the major macroeconomic development efforts. If you look at intermodal, and that would not have happened without an organization like the Minot Area Chamber EDC. And what that does is it supports our ag industry. It's opened up optionality. We're shipping to over 21 different countries. We're moving North Dakota commodities to global markets, and now they have a direct path to save money and do that. So those efforts don't happen. And that one, I've been in the role at the Chamber EDC for 4 years now. Before that, though, I was on the board of directors. And frankly, without an organization like ours, the city sat for years, I can't say the exact number of years, on an asset that was not collecting property taxes. The Minot Area Chamber EDC had the rail, you guys had the land, and the banks had the leasehold on it. That's not an attractive property. So it takes organizations and ours leaning in and forming partnerships at all level and making sure that we're working through those initiatives. Now, 5 years later, we are exceeding expectations and moving commodities out of the market. There's real success in it. Now, granted, economic development isn't a guarantee either. There's failure in it too. There's a lot of things that look great, but that's why we're constantly vetting through. We're not saying yes to every data center that is calling. We're vetting through to, understand the political environment, what's good for our state, how does that impact our energy needs. So there's a lot of strategy behind it too. And what's really interesting is that it takes years before we are actually a lot of times talking about a project. And again, the large scale projects, but if you look at our location, we're geographically in the middle of North America, which is cute on a bumper sticker, but it really does not help us with supply chain. It does not position us as a favorable location for development. If you look at even to the access to natural gas, yes, we have basic utilities, but right now, building on a natural gas pipeline is going to position us for redundancy in power, opportunity for additional development, and those are things that we're working on. And so I would say that if there's ever any questions, our team is very accessible. You can talk to myself, you can talk to Mark Lyman on the economic development side, Kelly Roselli Sullivan on the military or workforce side. We're here to answer any questions, but I would argue with the fact that development doesn't happen without that. Yes, you can create a low tax base and low tax environment, and that does bring some attraction. But also, too, if you look at the state of North Dakota, where the lowest tax base is, that some of those communities aren't developing. It's not just that, it's an all-in effort. And I think as we continue to compete for workforce pipeline to support the businesses that are here, and also the ones that could be coming, there's a lot of work to be done. And then just alone in the space with the Sentinel program. Now granted, there's modernization projects across all of Minot Air Force Base on the bomb wing side and the missile wing side. But we are undertaking the largest modernization project the Department of War has ever undertaken, because we're sustaining the current Minuteman III mission, which is critically important to the world and our national defense, while building out a whole new weapon system, 150 new sites, a new weapon. So that means new helicopters coming. That means a $95 million helicopter facility. And I think that there's been question, do we have any influence? There's a reason why the U.S. Air and Space Force leadership, the Secretary of the Air Force, has a civic leader program. They need the civilian and the community support. We're the continuity side. At Minot Air Force Base, our wing commanders change out every 2 years. What we provide is the compatibility use studies that is working with all the strategic partners that outlines opportunities for the Air Force Base and what does that connectivity look like. And we do a lot of this work. I could give you tons of examples. I know we have a whole city council meeting ahead of us, but I'm more than happy to sit down with anyone that has questions on it, but I would argue that you must invest in economic development, workforce development, and frankly, military support. With nearly $1 billion of economic impact with Minot Air Force Base, that's a big deal. It's our largest employer, and I say it often, Minot is not Minot without Minot Air Force Base. We lose our Air Force Base. We've seen the impacts when they've had base closures and what that does to communities. We're going to do everything we can, not only because it's right, because of national security, because it is a huge part of our community, but we're also going to support education, healthcare. Those are all also key economic drivers that we're working with. And we've helped to pilot programs with partnerships with Trinity and Minot State, and then legislatively gone down to advocate for funding for that. Again, there's a lot of work that we do that I'm very proud of that the team has led, but I would argue that you do have to invest in economic development. It doesn't happen without somebody waking up every day with that in their lane.
So am I correct in my view that you as a resident, longtime resident, active resident of Minot, and as a business development professional, in your best professional opinion, feel that our investments in economic development are justified and are worth the effort?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Alderman Blessing?
Thank you. Brecca, I just real fast on that question, because that was a big picture question. Does it mean that we shouldn't continue to evolve and change and make sure that we're in front of everything that's in front of us? It doesn't mean the programs that worked in 1995 still work in 2026. We need to continue to evolve. Am I correct?
Alderman Blessum, Mayor Janser, and members of council, I would agree with you. And I think that, I came in from the private sector. I owned a business. Minot's home. I grew up here. I went to Minot High. I went to Minot State. This is home for me. After 20 and a half years in the private sector, I left a job that I loved to honestly invest the second part of my career in the community. Saw that there's opportunities here. So yes, and I think that we as an organization, when we merged the Minot Area Chamber of Commerce with the Minot Area Development Corporation, there was definitely opportunities to look at this strategically different. We have a 5-year strategic plan that we follow those 5 key pillars. We've identified that these are the key pillars that are going to drive our economy. And I can't believe we're already coming up on our 5th year here next year, but we'll be continuing to look at where do we stand. And I even look to Alderman Blessum and members of council, what we've seen, the change. Even 5 years ago, we weren't talking natural gas pipelines to the level we are. AI and data centers weren't part of the conversation. We weren't competing in the energy sector to provide reliable power for a lot of different key industries a few years ago. So you have to continue to evolve. And that's why, too, we're very involved at all levels. We're seen as thought leaders at the state level. We're involved at the legislative session. We get involved on the community side. We're out in the townships. We're out and work with partners like the regional councils and the county. And so, yeah, I think that you do have to continue to move and pivot, open new doors, and try new things, because even workforce development and childcare weren't part of the conversation, really, even 5 years ago.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your report. That takes us to item 5, which is the report of the Planning Commission. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
I think we just need to accept it. So, okay, we have that. Then moving on, section 6, consent items.
Move approval.
Move to approve by Alderman Blessing.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Fuller. I don't have any of these items pulled by the members of the council, but If there is somebody in the audience who wishes to speak about or have one of the items in Section 6 discussed individually, now's the time to let us know if you do. Seeing no one, I guess we're ready to vote on the motion.
The motion passed unanimously.
That takes us to Section 7, which is the action items. And the first item is 7.1, a SCADA network, communications, private network. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
Moved by
I'll
Alderman
second.
Blessing, second by Alderman McMartin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's proceed to vote.
Vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
On to 7.2. 7.2 is a request to amend the International Building Code, Section 202, definition of high-rise buildings, and International Fire Code, Chapter 2 on high-rise buildings. The staff recommendation is to deny the request, and what are your wishes?
Mr.
Alderman
Mayor, move
Fuller.
approval.
Just one clarifying statement. That motion would approve the staff recommendation. So I think we want to move.
Sorry.
We want to move to pass on first reading.
I would like to, yes, sorry, I apologize. Move to pass on first reading.
Second.
All right. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Fuller.
So I brought this one to council after some discussions with Trinity. Over, I don't know, last couple months, I've met with Chris Van Gels and a couple other people over there. After having done so, they believe they've come up with a different option. I had a brief conversation with City Building Inspector Luke Tillema prior to, I believe, actually sitting down with Trinity, where they gave an alternative way to basically vent the stairwells in the event of a fire or something like that. I did sit down with Chief Kelly, Inspector Brown, Fire Marshal, and Deputy Chief, and brought it to them. And I believe I felt like, honestly, I just got shut down. Like, they didn't want to hear it. They just said, hey, we need a code study. We need this. You know, we told them they had to do it this way. And again, I asked the question, I said, wouldn't we rather have some control than no control, right? Wouldn't we rather sit down and work collaboratively with them to try and come up with something? And, you know, honestly, like, it's been just over 4 years, and I believe that the city has always maintained, in reading the emails, communications, and everything like that, the city has always maintained that, hey, we told you you had to do it this way, and if you're not going to do it this way, you're not going to do it at all. And, you know, ultimately, I don't think that's what's best for our community. So I brought this as an alternative to say, hey, let's change the building code, let's raise the level, and let's let Trinity open and operate the 6th floor.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Blessum.
Thank you. I am not a fan of changing the building code. I don't think that's a good idea. At the same time, I do think it's incumbent on the city to work with what we all would agree is one of our most important partners to come to a solution that allows them to utilize the building that they built and invested in our community. You know, we were asked a while back to try to, you know, is there something we could do to halt development of a new hospital in the north end of town? Legally, there's no good way for us to do that. But what we can do is make sure that there aren't regulatory and roadblocks happening within the city. And so what passing this ordinance on first reading does is it forces the parties to the table to come to an agreement. It sets a timeline. And so I would urge my colleagues to vote yes on this, not because it's the right way to approach it or to solve it, but because it pushes the agenda forward and makes sure that Trinity and the city come to an agreement that's going to be workable for both sides.
Mr. Mayor. And just, I know
Alderman
there's,
Fuller.
thank you. I know there's been some questions too about whether we can change the building code or not. This is from the North Dakota Department of Commerce, who manages or oversees, administers the state building code, which we effectively take as our building code. And here's what it says. If a city, county, or township elects to adopt and enforce building codes, it must adopt and enforce the state building code. However, a jurisdiction is permitted to further amend the state building code to conform to local needs. Fully chartered home rule cities may adopt something other than the state building code on top of that. So, I mean, basically what that says, and we as a city have used those amendments over the last few years a number of times. In fact, there's section 9.2 titled in our code, Amendments to the International Building Code. There's a list of them on there. Most recently, Ordinance 6192 amended multiple sections of the city's building code. So again, we have the authority through the state to do this. As Mike said, this isn't the first option, but I think passing it on first reading to force the city and Trinity to come together and come up with a viable solution that works for everybody, I think it's the way to go.
Alderman McMartin.
Do we have a motion on the floor? And what is that motion?
Pass on first reading.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Janzer, Council. The real issue I guess I have with this, it can be framed in my letters, but the fact is that I have not been proposed any alternatives to a pressurized stair at Trinity. Zero. So the fact that we're here, it feels a bit premature. I've been in one meeting with representatives from Trinity since I issued the certificate of occupancy for that building in 2023. So
Could you speak up, please?
at that meeting, I did suggest that there are alternatives and that I would like to see those alternatives. I have not seen anything yet to date. So the proposals that have been rejected by the city have not been by me. And I am the authority for building permits and certificates. So it's really the only avenue.
Mr. Mayor, sorry. Thought you were done.
I'm done. That's all I really had to say, was that I have not seen any alternatives proposed. I've heard talks from other city departments about some things that they were considering, and I've always been under the advice that I would love to see that and how that's going to work. I've never said no.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. And Luke, I appreciate you saying that, hey, in the meeting that you did talk to them, you said, hey, there's other alternatives. Can I ask, after 4 years, at some point, why didn't you take 5 minutes and reach out to Trinity with an email or a call and say, hey, guys, there's other options within the building code that will allow you to do this? Bring me something.
I guess I had. I had at the initial issuance of the Phase 3 building permit for the original construction that you see today. I've never gone anywhere. My contact information is on the website. So for me to reach out to Trinity, not knowing their plans for occupancy, is a little bit premature. And until they're ready, I'm not going to make them do something. I will wait until they bring me a proposal, which is in the code. I will evaluate it so that it meets the intent of the code, which is to keep smoke out of the required stairways. But like I said, I have not seen an alternative to the original design, which was a pressurized stair.
So, if I may continue.
Go ahead.
So do you believe that, with some of the other things you may have heard, even though it hasn't been presented to you, do you believe there's a viable alternative there, that if you sat down with Trinity and they got some engineered documents to you guys, that you could come up with something?
I feel like Mayor Janzer, Alderman Fuller, yes. I feel like that is definitely a viable option, greater than changing the code.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
we're premature.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Alderman Padragula.
I appreciate this building person's perspective. I wanted to ask the fire chief's perspective on this. I mean, in some ways, changing the code to give 2 or 3 feet extra access or, makes sense. So I wanted to hear, building official has said, no, this isn't going to work, but I'm willing to be open to other alternatives, and there are other alternatives. What does the fire department say?
Mayor, Alderman Padragula, this change it's changing how we would have to fight fire. This code was developed based on research. So the 75 feet just didn't come out of anywhere. It was based on how we fight fire when we get to buildings that are very tall. Once I submitted a diagram of the building, and T was going to pull it up for me. So as you can see, in the areas that are green is the areas that we can access with our current fleet. We have a 95-foot ladder that would be the one that would be able to hit the green area. So with that being said, that's not a lot of area. So that's what the research has shown, is that once we get to those taller buildings, we have to work inside the building. So it's kind of a wheel, and there's different spokes of the wheel, whether it's, sprinklers. We have an emergency communication center because our communications within this building is difficult. So there's all these different systems that we work together to make sure that we have them when we're working in those upper levels. So our firefighters rely on those pressurized stairwells to get into the building safely. That is where the safe havens are. When you're not able to make it down the stairs, you know that you need to go to the safe havens, which are the stairwells, and stay there until help arrives. Also, that is where our visitors to the buildings are going, and they're going to try to exit. So that's why they're pressurized, especially at those higher levels. So this is just a tactics and strategies for us. The building code builds the building or remodels, and then we are, once it's occupied. That's our stand on it.
So in your professional opinion, do you think this ordinance the building code as it is now is a rational, sensible kind of rule?
Mayor, Alderman Padragula, yes. It was designed, the building code was designed with research. And so I believe in the research, I believe in the process of adopting it, whether it's the International Code Council, all the way through the state and local. When we're looking at codes, we really have a hard time deviating from them. We have to have really good reason to. And I don't believe that this is a really good reason to.
The building official was asked if there were viable alternatives, and he said there were. Do you think there are viable alternatives?
Mayor, Alderman Padragula, yes, there are alternatives. There are multiple alternatives within the code that are stated. And again, we haven't seen anything. We've gone to the table and we've talked about it, but we've never seen anything brought back to us. We've asked for them to get a design professional on board and bring something forward, and we haven't seen that yet.
And you'd be willing to consider those if they were brought forward?
Absolutely.
And you think a certified licensed design professional, architect, engineer would be aware of those alternatives and could bring them forward to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. So Chief, help me understand something here. You talk about fighting the fire at the top of the building, right? If you can't get in from the ladder, you got to go up the stairs. So walk me through what type of fire it would be, because the hospitals are designed into pods, right? So if there is a fire in a pod, they seal all the doors, they move the patients out, they seal all the doors, and their fire suppression system kicks in. 9 times out of 10, you guys aren't going to have to fight or put a fire out unless it starts from the exterior of the building, if their fire suppression system is doing what it would take. So help me understand how there's a difference between 75 feet and 78 feet if their system 90% of the time, 99% of the time is actually going to put the fire out?
Mayor Alderman Fuller, a suppression system within a building is designed to contain the fire. It is not necessarily designed to put out the fire. Some of them do. We've seen that. But when we get to those levels, it's a lot about exit. When we are fighting a house fire or 1 to 2 story, 3 story building, we can put a secondary means of egress. That's what we need in order to get out of the building in case something goes bad. Yes, a hospital is designed in those pods, you are correct. Also, the staff know that they're designed that way. So if they have a fire in one area, they know that they have horizontal egress. They all move to one section of the building, and then we go and fight the fire in the other section, because there's no way that they can move all those patients that are sometimes not able to be moved. There's no way that they can move them, so they have to build them in that manner. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Blessum.
Thank you. Chief, as I read through the code and, you get into a lot of really detailed nuance of what's actually going on here. And, you had the picture, and if we can bring that up again, it would be helpful to me. The way I understand the code, and I don't know if Luke needs to chime in on this, which one of you will know it, but it describes the idea that you would measure from the lowest point where an apparatus could be set to the top of the finished floor. And what we've determined in this case is that we're at 78.2, which that's fine. I mean, we take that for granted. Do you happen to know where that point is for the lowest point of the apparatus being set on this diagram?
Mayor Alderman Blessum, yeah, what we did is we looked from grade of entry, and it's to that floor level.
Yep.
So it's the 75 feet. We went out, after the last meeting that we met with Trinity, we went out and we looked at the whole building. I had a battalion chief with me. I think I had a crew, maybe 2 crews with me, and we basically pre-planned this building. If we had a fire, what would we do? Where would we make entry typically? And during that discussion, we kind of master planned, okay, we'd use stairwell, I can't remember off the top of my head, we'd use number 1, we'd use number 5, we'd use 1 elevator shaft and all those kinds of things, because we use the elevators also during a fire. Those are very much part of our operation. And so we master planned all that, and then we looked, can we raise that level of the doorway? Can we bring up the level? Can we have them put in some concrete and raise that up just to get past that? And again, we need a design professional that can look at all those things more holistically, because I'm looking at it seeing, well, just raise up the level of grade. But we need that design professional to be able to put that together.
And if I can continue, Mr. Mayor. So with respect, Chief, and again, there's nuance in here. That's not my understanding of what the grade actually is. It's about where the apparatus is parked, because it doesn't matter where you're walking in, it's where the truck is. So that's the way that I read the code. And so to me, this is a very simple thing from engineering drawings. It's really about grade. You determine what point around that site is your grade, your lowest grade point where an apparatus would or could be set. And then it's 75 feet from that point. And my point in this whole thing is not to make some grand point about the code. This is international code. This is what's agreed upon as the right way to go about things, which is why I prefaced what I said with saying this is not the right approach to solve this, okay? At the same time, what we're getting into here is the arbitrariness of all of this all the way around. So we can't talk about, a 95-foot ladder. We can't talk about even our plan, because the code doesn't actually read that way. The code says, what is the lowest point you would put an apparatus to the top of the finished floor? That's it. That's the entire code. It doesn't matter what any other plan means whatsoever. And that's the part that gets hard for me. That's why I'm wondering where that was, not because I'm second guessing how it was calculated, but more to illustrate the fact that this is very, very specific that we're talking about. This isn't about your plan. It's really not about Luke's, overall approval of what the building even looks like. The International Building Code is very, very clear about how this is supposed to be measured. And so asking Trinity, I think, to go back and redo that, I don't think is the right approach. That, I assume, was done up front, I would think, because somehow we arrived at that 78.2 mark. And so, again, I'll go back to my colleagues. One way that we can move through this is to say, hey, we need a partner to get their stuff done so that they're more healthy and viable for our community, because that's what this is about in my mind right now. And what we've got to get to is what's the right way to get there. The right way to get there is for city staff to come to an agreement with Trinity leadership on how we're going to approach getting through what the code says, which gives us alternatives. And my hope is that passing the ordinance on first reading gives us the timeline to try to get that done. Second reading would come when we set it in a few months, a couple months. So I don't know if there's any more that you have to add to that, but to me, that's very clear. I don't know if we know, is it on a drawing? I assume this point is identified somewhere that we measured the vertical height from.
Mayor Janzer, Alderman Blessam, the original plans is where that measurement comes from. We
Okay,
still
so-
have those on record.
Okay, so do you know what point around the building that was taken from?
Yeah, I cannot remember, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but I can get you that answer.
Okay. Do we have anybody from Trinity that can speak to that at all?
I can't speak to this is Chris Van Gels. Mr. Mayor, appreciate it, thank you. Council members, thank you for letting me talk. No, I do not have the measurement point from where they took it from regarding that. What you have is a measurement that goes into that building from the ground level to the bottom of that level floor, not the top of the floor. So if we're going by the top of the floor, then we're meeting the need, if you want to argue it that way, because we're at 78.2 at that bottom of that floor, which is that walk-in level on level 6. So that's the 3 foot 2 inch difference that goes along with that.
Okay, just if I could, Mr. Mayor, Chris, that's not my understanding of the code. The way that I think of it is, there's a point outside somewhere, you know, whether it's next to the main entrance, somewhere you can pull up and put an apparatus.
Yes.
That sets a baseline number, right? Then the top of the measurement is to the top of the floor, the walking surface of the top floor. Chief, is that your understanding of it? Like, it goes to the top of that, the walking surface, I believe, is the top of the measurement. Again, I assume you guys had good engineers working on this. That's not my question. My real point here is the arbitrariness, because this is not something related specifically to the Minot Fire Department being safe. We need to take the same precautions any tall building would have, and the code lays out alternatives that I'd like to see you guys come forward to work with our staff on.
Understand on that one.
Luke, is that, just to verify that, it's whatever that identified ground level is, wherever that apparatus was going to sit, to the top, the walking surface of the top floor, correct?
Yes, correct. That is a correct point of time.
Okay.
Right there.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. Chris, why don't you go ahead and talk since you're up here? I'm
Thank
sure you
you.
have some input on this.
Well, I just want to say thank you for letting us talk tonight. And the intent here is to drive home the fact that we agree with the city on the fact that we want to make sure everything is safe regarding this hospital. And the hospital was built in a very safe manner that goes along with that. We're not asking to ignore any of those safety requirements. We're asking to understand that, do we have a reasonably safe hospital that meets the appropriate life safety requirements for a hospital? The International Building Code establishes that minimum requirement that goes along with that, into that, and make sure that the codes are designed that. So does the fire code regarding making sure those minimums are in there, or that minimum level of safety that goes in there. The new hospital is not a typical apartment or not a typical office building. It is a modern, fully sprinkled healthcare facility that has multiple layers of fire safety and life safety built into it. Not just a fully sprinkled building, we have complete smoke detection, we have complete heat detection in our ducts, we have fire and smoke dampers that shut air on and off. We have trained all the employees to understand that we are a compartmentalized building from a smoke and fire life safety requirement, which means you move horizontally. Per the NFPA, hospitals are not designed to evacuate. They're designed to defend in place. That is the intent of a hospital. So we don't want to move anyone to a stairwell at all regarding any type of life safety event that goes along with it. Additionally, we had the North Dakota State Department of Health come out, review the building, and look at it from a standpoint of whether or not we should have a smoke-proof enclosure per the IBC code, or additionally stairwell pressurization that goes along with that. In their review by qualified regulators, they did not see the need for us to have a smoke-proof enclosure for their stairwells based on the fact that we have multiple layers of life safety integrated into this building. At that level, even though we are at 78.2 feet, which is 3 feet 2 inches taller than the current IBC 75 feet. So what we're asking here today is, has the hospital made all reasonable attempts to drive home life safety across the board outside of this smoke-proof enclosure or stairwell pressurization that goes along with it, in the fact that we are a defend-in-place facility? And that's where we want to leave it. We have built a hospital that is very safe and continually has recurring testing and recurring regulatory requirements that we follow and meet on a weekly, monthly, semi-annual, annual basis. Thank you.
So just a so there isn't anything in the code, though, that, given what you've just said, that exempts you from this portion of it, or is there?
That exempts us from,
The 75-foot,
not at the current
Rule.
time, we are not exempt from that, so that's why that floor is completely empty right now. We are asking,
and does anybody know, did this code change since 5-6 years ago, whenever the hospital was designed and built? I don't remember, it's been a while, but maybe Luke knows the answer to that, I don't know.
Mayor Janzer, the code has not changed in this regard. It still has the same 3 methods, the same smoke-proof enclosure requirement for required exit stairways, interior ones. Same codes, same words.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I don't
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. I don't have a question for Chris. I actually have a question for Chief, if I could. So the 78 feet, like we're talking about, this 3.2 feet over, we have a 95-foot ladder truck with a platform on it, do we not? And that doesn't reach that floor?
Mayor Janser, Alderman Fuller, as you can see on the diagram, the green area is where it actually can reach fully. So 95 feet, we do have to have setbacks. As you can see, those stars, that's kind of where we would have to place our apparatus. And then you have to have a working degree. They can't go straight up and down. It's really not fun doing that.
Fair.
So it is very difficult when we get to those levels. In doing our research on, because it was brought to our attention that some areas have done 80 feet. In that research, one, they're in bigger cities where they can throw a lot more staff at this building. NFPA 1710, which I've talked to you guys about as far as the career initial responses to fires, and they require 43 people to be on this scene for that initial deployment of staff on a fire. We don't have that. So we're working with minimum staffing that are going to require having to have a lot of people going up and down those stairs with air bottles, because we're not going to have pressurized stairwells to work in. So by the time they get up to that top level, they're probably going to be through already a bottle of air. So then they're going to have to be carrying bottles. They're going to have to be carrying the high-rise packs, because they have to hook up to the standpipe systems. Again, another piece that we need in that spoke. We can't reach that high with our pumps. That's why they have to have standpipes in those bigger buildings. But yeah, everything just kind of has to work together.
Okay, one more question on that.
Go ahead.
With you were just talking about the firefighters going up and down the stairs. Wouldn't they have their masks on anyway in case there's some type of noxious gas or something going up and down those stairs, whether there's smoke in there or not?
Mayor Alderman Fuller, they would assume, they go in, that it's a pressurized stairwell, that they have some level of clean air in that area.
Alderman Blessing.
Okay, thanks. So Chief, there's a couple things in there that I didn't quite follow, I guess. So if we have a plan, right now you guys have a plan for Trinity, right? Like that's the type of building that you would have that building, we know what we're going to do. And I don't know how you would train on that or exactly how you would do it. So right now, you would know those stairways aren't pressurized, right?
Mayor Janser, Alderman Blessing, yes, we do know that.
Okay, so you would act in that way. And then the second thing that caught me a little strange is that you mentioned that NFPA would say we need 43 firefighters. I assume that if that building is on fire, it's all hands on deck. I mean, we've got, not only will we have every single person possible from your entire department, but everybody, I mean, if it's on fire long enough, we might have Bismarck up here. I mean, literally, right? I mean, we're going to do everything it takes. And so when we're having these discussions, I think we have to be real about what we're saying. And we can't have the brinksmanship in every discussion about being understaffed and that it's always so scary. We've got to deal with reality because we're trying to make decisions. We got a decision in front of us that I said at the beginning, I don't particularly like. I would rather get your team some measure of safety that you're looking for in working with Chris, rather than the council saying arbitrarily, no, we'll just move it to 80 and now we're not pressurizing anything. So let's get to the table and figure it out. That's what I'm looking for out of this.
Alderman Samuelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I got a couple questions for Chris. I mean, I review everything, I look at the letters and stuff, and up until, I guess, this point, Trinity has known that they have to do something with those stairwells. Is that correct?
As I understand it, yes, prior to me being here, I came in 3 years ago.
Okay, so that's part of this whole thing is not everyone knows necessarily what's gone on from the beginning. Because I know even our building official was on staff, but not in charge of what was going on with the frustration that I have, and it goes along with what Alderman Blessum says. I keep hearing that there's conversations have gone on between the city and Trinity. Is that correct?
Talks with the fire chief in the last 6 months and with the city manager.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had not.
Okay, so the frustration I have is out of this whole thing, what I've determined, and if you don't know, I'm a plumbing inspector, so I have a code that I have to go by. So I go through the same things that Luke is going through and they're going through, and so I understand that. Mr. Telma is the building official for the city of Minot. And it is his determination on this that we have to go by. So what I would like to know at this point, how many times has Trinity sat down and talked with Mr. Tillema about this issue?
I have only talked with him once in my 3 years here. Prior to that, I do not have that number. I do not have that. I'd have to go back through all the paperwork to understand.
Okay, so, okay, let me phrase it this way then. How long has Trinity looked at occupying the 6th floor? You guys decided not to occupy it.
That was a
From the
decision that
letters.
was made prior to me coming on here, on
Okay,
board.
so when have we talked about, now we want to occupy this floor? 6 months, a year?
So I started evaluating the options and the guidelines of the IBC code about a year and a half ago, and then back in January, I'm going to mess up the date, is when I met with the city and Luke and the fire chief to discuss what I felt was a reasonable life safety procedure. So right now, our intent is to stand the ground with, we want to figure out what the right path forward is. There are options.
And I understand that, and I know there are. So what alternatives did Trinity Hospital or you present to Luke
At
Tillema?
that time, I only presented the fact that we'd like to have a variance for 3.2 feet.
Okay, so that's the part that I'm getting to, and Mike kind of alluded to, is the fact the people that are involved in this need to sit down and discuss it. I appreciate Alderman Fuller bringing it to the table and bringing this code thing, but it should have never came to this. I'm looking around here, I think everyone in this room is an adult. And I think the city of Minot has very good people that are adults, and I believe that Trinity has very good people that are adults. And the right adults need to sit down and figure this out. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And if it comes to it and it can't be, I'd gladly support and vote for this if that can't be done. And I think at times we need to, I guess I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but sometimes we need to put aside our egos. There's times on council that I know I'm not going to get everything I want. And I can guarantee that I don't know that Trinity is going to get everything they want, and the city might not get everything they want. But we gotta solve this as adults. I don't like changing the rules just because someone doesn't agree with them. They're all alternatives to this, and they need to be presented. And then at that point, we go from there. So I agree with Mike. Meeting has to happen, and it's got to get going. There's got to be some plans. There's got to be some on what you guys plan to do with it and how you're going to meet the code as it exists today. Thank you.
Anything further? Questions? Alderman Padragula.
Question or discussion?
Whichever you like. I guess we're in discussion. We've kind of gone with people coming to the podium from Trinity and so forth, but you can offer a comment. Sure.
Thank you. I guess I did want to call the fire chief back for a quick question. For the benefit of the public, since you and I have talked about this repeatedly for many years, what is our typical staffing for the Minot Fire Department on a shift?
Mayor Janser, Alderman Padragula, our full staffing is 21 with a minimum of 17.
What percentage of the time are we only down to 17 people? Roughly.
I'd say about 60% of the time.
So more than half of the time, we have bare minimum staffing of 17 people, which is what the National Fire Protection Association holds out as a standard nationally. If we did have a major fire, you would call back crews. How many could you realistically expect to be back?
Mayor Janser, Alderman Padragula, for something as large as that, we would do a full department callback. We have different alarms, so we have multiple alarms, and one of the alarms, it actually calls back Minot Rural, so we would have them to also
Delayed.
fall back on. I am not sure of the level of their staffing. Beyond that, we would probably have to start calling back some of our other mutual aid partners, which gets difficult. When you're working with that many organizations and you're not used to working with them. Our closest partner is Minot Rural.
So even if we had the regular shift on duty and called back an entire shift of our own trained professional firefighters, we still wouldn't be close to what NFPA recommends for fighting a fire in this kind of facility.
Mayor Janser, Alderman Padragula, that was the initial. Eventually, we'd have that many people, but it would take a while to get them to get them out there.
So you'd be lucky to get 34 people in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now I wanted to go to the comment. I'm a little bit torn by this because on the common sense basis, 2.5 feet seems pretty trivial. We're talking about 80 feet, 2.5 seems pretty trivial. But, and I agree very much with, especially what Scott has said here, that, you know, the people involved need to sit down and work this out. What is going to move me and what I would to vote against this resolution, and what I would encourage my fellow aldermen to do is also oppose it, is because it's a life safety issue. And I think on things like this, we really can't cut corners. If someone wants a lot line moved 3 feet or a variance on a building or something like that, I'm perfectly willing to consider that and probably would support it. But when it comes to life safety, I'm very reluctant to do that. And I base that opinion on reading the correspondence and all the rules and everything and trying to understand them as best as I can, although I'm not an engineer. But I think what we have here is we have 3 professionals that the city employs. We have our fire chief who's been here many years. We have the current building official. And we even have the previous building official who've all said, wait a second here, this is not safe. We can't sign off on this. And I want to emphasize that we're talking about 2 different building officials, so it's not as if the current one is somehow a stickler or obsessive or whatever. In fact, the previous building official wrote a very he's not an employee anymore, so I guess I can be somewhat critical. I wrote a very blunt letter to Trinity back in 2019 that said basically, what are you guys doing? Why are you building a building that you know is not going to be usable for the 6th floor? He was pretty blunt. I wasn't real comfortable with that, but I was in charge and I didn't see the letter back then. So we have 3 professionals saying, look, this is a problem, this is an issue. Normally, I think we should make decisions based on data and good professional judgment, and I think we have that professional judgment here over time from 3 different people. But at times, I think we're going to resort to personal experiences, and I want to mention this briefly because it really got me to thinking. I like Trinity. I trust Trinity with my health care. In fact, I spent a week inpatient there, almost a week, about 2 months ago. I came down with a upper respiratory infection. I went to Convenient Care, not Trinity's, another organization's Convenient Care, and got some medicine, and things didn't get better. In fact, they were getting worse, and I ended up going to Trinity's emergency room and was admitted on the spot on a Sunday evening. I spent 5 nights there. And I remember being hooked up in a bed with all sorts of IV lines and monitors, and they came to check me in the middle of the night, all the usual stuff you hear about people getting in hospitals. And I thought, what would happen if there had been a fire? I needed help to go to the bathroom. And I was in reasonably decent shape. I was reasonably mobile. I know you're supposed to go to a place of refuge, and there is one. But I also know that hospitals are very short-staffed. I could hear the call buzzer going off constantly and not being responded to. And that's not any different from any, and I'm being critical of Trinity, it's not different from many other hospitals in the country. We're short-staffed in the healthcare field. And to rely on nurses at staff at night, especially, to be able to successfully evacuate people, I think is a stretch. That's the reality. We don't like it, but that's the reality. The other thing I'm thinking of is, what if my wife had been there? I know the protocol isn't to carry patients down a stairwell. But what if my wife had been there visiting me? She's mobility impaired at this point. How is she going to get out? And when I thought about it from that personal perspective, I wouldn't want to be a patient in that facility when one of the wards was not fully accessible. Now, as I understand it from what I've heard, this ward will be used for mental health patients. I've also heard something about maybe rehabilitation. If it's rehab patients, then you have a heck of a mobility problem. So I've worked on rehab, and by definition, those people aren't mobile. If it's mental health patients, almost by definition, they're going to have some deficits in coping and judgment and insight and mood control. So I don't think that's a much healthier population. Maybe they don't have to be wheeled around in a wheelchair or a bed, but I think they pose their own problems. So from that personal standpoint of having been in a hospital where you wonder, what would happen? I just can't in good conscience support this exemption. What I would like Trinity and our staff to do is to sit down, and I would like Trinity to offer some proposals, and I would like our staff to be open to them and see if we can make this work. Because I think we need to make this work for our community. For Trinity, it's a very important part of our community, and certainly our city building and fire safety people are a very important part of our government. So I think there should be some options here, and I think they need to be considered carefully, and then they need to be presented to the city for approval. At this point, because it involves life safety, I'm not willing to vote for approval on first reading. I would be willing to vote for approval if we get a viable plan that our city staff signs off on. And I think Trinity, with their architects and engineers, should have the expertise to come up with something. They were warned about this 6+ years ago, and apparently nothing's been proposed that's acceptable, that meets the code. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting against this reluctantly, but I think I have to, because I think I have to put public safety first.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. Just in the general discussion here, I think we all know what we need and want done rather than changing this code, right? We want Trinity and the city staff to sit down and come up with an answer together. So what if we table this and give them 60 to 90 days or whatever it is? I mean, and then because if we vote it down, it would have to be brought back for reconsideration, or we would be reconsidering something else at that point down the road. But if we table it and leave it there and say, hey, everybody, get together, let's fix this.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Blessing.
As I said at the beginning, that's the whole point of 2 readings. So we can pass first reading tonight with no consequence. It does not go into law, it does not become law, and without a second reading, it cannot and never will become law. And so unless the city attorney has anything to add to that, I don't see tabling this item as any advantage over passing on first reading and holding out a second reading.
City Attorney.
Mayor Janser, Alderman Blessum, the only thing I was going to state on the timelines is that, so if it passes on first reading tonight, typically what staff would do would be to queue it up for the next meeting, which would be August 3rd, which would make the agenda deadline for that on Thursday, the 23rd. So it's a lightning fast deadline in terms of meeting under our agenda setting policy. We could always have a late ad, but I don't know if that fast of a turnaround is necessarily what's being contemplated by the parties that are talking about the matter itself. As I understand the conversation, there have been no alternatives that have been presented to city staff at all. I'm seeing Luke nodding his head. So I don't know if that's something that Trinity is prepared to talk about alternatives, or if they prefer that the council just consider the motion on the table, the request for the exemption.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'll make an amendment to my motion. And what I'll do is I'll set the second reading for this as the second, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring a new amendment. It's Rob's
Oh, I
motion.
was like,
It's a new amendment.
Okay.
So it's an amendment to Rob's motion. And we set the second reading for the second meeting in December, unless staff has an agreement they're ready to bring us sooner.
Okay, there's a motion to amend.
I'm good with it.
The
I was the
maker of
motion maker. He's
It's a new motion. It's
Yeah.
a new
He needs a
amendment.
second. He would need a
I just need a second.
second.
Okay, seconded by Alderman Fuller. So we're discussing the amendment.
Well-
Again, we leave ourselves with no obligations if we go over this route. But it does let the parties know that this is a serious matter that needs to get worked through.
Yeah. Mr.
Alderman
Mayor.
Fuller?
Agreed. I mean, if we pass it on first reading, no harm, no foul, right? That gives them until December 2nd, when it would come back to us or before, to make a decision. And if you guys still don't like it at December 2nd, it can get voted down. But I think, to Mike's point, it forces the groups to get together and work through this as a whole.
Yeah, and to be clear, just to clarify, second meeting in December. Yep. Which I think Michaela said is the 21st.
Yes.
We're clear on the motion? Okay. Okay, any further discussion?
Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Samuelson?
Thank you. Luke, I have a question for you, if you would indulge me. If this ordinance passes on the second reading in December, what happens?
Mayor Janser, Alderman Samuelson, the negative impacts that I foresee, I guess, just knowing about insurance service officers auditing us, is that our building code effectiveness grade would more than likely be impacted in a negative way. When we get evaluated, our building department gets evaluated for by the insurance services to gain a building code effectiveness grade. Over half of their evaluation is determined on the code that we adopt, and then also the ordinances that we write as a local home rule. So what they do is they evaluate those ordinances and assess it as either less restrictive or more restrictive than the model code. And when they find that your amendment is less restrictive than the model code, they then evaluate it for risk. So the risk involved with increasing the height of our high-rise buildings to 80 feet would more than likely negatively affect our property insurance rates.
If I could continue.
Let's go ahead.
So Luke, I guess the other thing that I look at too is, as far as if this gets adopted and it gets approved, Trinity doesn't have to do any of the stuff we're talking about. Is that correct?
Mark Janser, Mayor Janser, Alderman Samuelson, that's correct. They would be then exempt from all of the high-rise requirements, which Mr. Van Gels mentioned earlier. All of the special safety features that this hospital has are separate and distinct requirements in the building code, not additional ones that they chose to add instead of. There has been no trade-offs. There has been no alternatives proposed to me for this. Did I answer your question there?
You did, thank you. So if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I'm done, Luke. I didn't know how I was gonna vote for this, and I don't know if I still do till actually I press the button. We're asking the parties involved to get this settled, and we're gonna use this amendment to the code to get them there. Well, if we pass this, and we'll say it doesn't work out and we pass it in December, I don't know that this, as if I had to pick one, I don't know that this would bring Trinity to the table. Because if we pass this, well, there's no need to come to the table, because if this becomes something that we do, I mean, I don't know that, I actually think denying it brings them to the table. Because they have to, I mean, if they want to finish the 6th floor, they got to talk. That would be my understanding, so I don't know that this forces anything to do it this way, but that's one guy's opinion.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you, Scott. And I get where you're coming from, but didn't you just like 5 minutes ago say that we're all adults? Like everybody's going to come to the table, right? Like you told us we were all adults. Like you told the Trinity people, the city people, we're all adults. And now you're saying, well, they wouldn't come to the table. That doesn't make sense. And I mean, I agree with you on the first part. We're all adults. We just want them to get together and talk. Chris, can I ask you a question while I'm talking? Would you guys, whether we pass this or not, come to the table with the city of Minot and give them an alternative to the pressurized stairwell that you believe works through some engineering firm? Thank you.
If I could, just one last time, and that's the point I'm making. This has no relevance on whether they get them to the table or not. They just have to step up and be adults and do it. I don't think, I guess the best way to do it is, I don't think bribery is going to work. That's just my
Call the
feeling.
question.
All right.
And
City-
the motion
city
on the table
attorney.
is the amendment, just so everyone's clear what we're voting on. We're kind of working our way back up to the main motion. So the motion on the table is the amending the main motion to postpone the second reading into the second meeting in December.
Okay, everybody clear? Let's vote.
The motion to amend passed 5-2 with dissent from Alderman Locken and Alderman Padragula.
Okay, we're back on the original motion as amended. Any discussion? Alderman Padragula.
I guess two other things have recently surfaced I wanted to call people's attention to. I guess first is the precedent this sets. We have not too many, but we have at least one prominent high-rise building that's in downtown Minot that hopefully will be redeveloped soon. And I think this would open the door to them asking for an exemption. The hospital I have fond feelings for. I'm willing to give them, cut them some slack, give them a break. But other buildings may be coming with similar requests. The second thing is this issue of insurance premiums going up for commercial properties throughout the city. If we're nice, so to speak, to Trinity, that opens the door to increased premiums for other buildings. And that's not necessarily high-rises even, but that's worrisome to me. If we're trying to save citizens money, acting in a way that increases their fire insurance premiums doesn't seem like the greatest thing to do.
Alderman Padragula, I guess my understanding is that if this amends the code, so there isn't another entity that would have to come and ask permission. We changed the code and it's changed.
Right.
Right. So it would apply to all of the
You're absolutely
buildings.
correct. Anybody could
Yeah,
do this.
exactly. Without asking anything. Alderman Lesson.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I think Alderman Fuller referred before to a series of adjustments to the ordinances that we've already, we, meaning previous councils, have already done. Have we ever had an adjustment to our insurance ratings based on a code change?
Mayor Janzer, Alderman Alderman Blessam, for a code change, I'm not aware because we haven't made a change like this in Minot ever. We've only made more restrictive amendments to the state building code.
And so if I can continue, so it's your contention that this simple change will trigger an insurance rate adjustment that will impact every property owner in the city?
Every commercial property, yes. Because that is specifically what they're evaluating for. They're evaluating our ordinances to make sure that we are at least the national minimum, right? And when we go past that or beyond that national minimum, they assess it for the risk involved. And that's the risk to the people, the risk to the staff, and the risk to the first responders.
Mr. Mayor, Luke.
Alderman Fuller.
Luke, before you sit down, have you talked to the gentleman or the people? I mean, because from what you just said, the majority of the ordinance changes we make are more restrictive. So that would have to probably be in the positive for us. So if we make one less restrictive one, you're telling us that our insurance rates are going to change drastically for commercial properties in Minot.
Mayor Janzer, Alderman Fuller, because of the risk involved, this will definitely negatively affect the commercial insurance rates in Minot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we have a motion as amended to amend the International Building Code as we've been discussing. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion failed 3-4 with dissent from Mayor Janser, Alderman Locken, Alderman Padragula, and Alderman Samuelson.
Mr. Mayor, before we
Alderman
go
Fuller.
on, I would just, since we've voted this down, I would just like to encourage Trinity and the city staff to please get together and figure this out for everybody in the community and for us as well up here.
Mayor?
Alderman Padragula.
I wanted to strongly second what Rob just said. I think this facility and its people and its services and its patients play a critical role in our community, and we shouldn't let this disagreement, this failure, stand in the way of them moving forward and us keeping our citizens safe. I think it's critical that they come together and work something out.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Blessing.
So I would encourage you, Mayor, or you, President Padragula, to make that happen. We are the elected officials. We're expected by the city to lead the city. So please step in and lead the fight to make it happen. One of the two of you.
Alderman Blessing, you make a good point, and I would certainly be happy to try to do this. I think the hope from the beginning has been to try to get to yes on this, but it's a steep climb. But it sounds like there are alternatives and there are ways to work through it. So I'd be happy to try to facilitate any kind of meeting that we could have.
To
Alderman Padragula.
follow up on that, I sent an email earlier today to the mayor and the city manager and the council vice president asking for efforts to move together with Trinity's board to work out some issues. I didn't specifically mention this, but obviously it's part of what we need to be talking about. So I would second what the mayor is doing here and mention my own small part in that.
Okay, very well. With that, we'll move on. Item 7.3 is a recommendation to extend the duration of the city county, I think that might be, library committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. I sit on the committee. We've done great work, but we do need a little bit more time to bring everything to the people and get it, so that's why they're asking us to extend it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Blessing.
A question for Alderman Fuller. I think part of the discussion that I've seen contemplates a vote in 2028 at this point. Are we past the point where we can put this on the ballot for this fall?
Well, from the discussions we've had, August would be the deadline, right? To get everything ready and put on there to go on the ballot, because I believe it was 92 days. Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, 95 days, whatever it was. So August would be it. So we talked about pushing it to 2028 because at the time we weren't aware if we could do a special election in an off year or not, which we can. We can.
I thought they changed that law.
It's only, and Steph, quote me here if I'm wrong, but it's only if we're adding tax or what was the other thing?
Oh, I can't remember what the other thing was,
But
but
to do
we
something
did look it
nominal
up.
like this, yeah.
Yep, we did look it up, and this would be something that you could do, but it is different from like the park merger because library has its own title in the Century Code, and so it specifically talks about if you are going to merge services, dissolve one library, combine them together, you would have to do a special election and bring that question to the electorate.
So just to follow up on that, so if we take an action to dissolve the Minot Public Library, with the idea that that is what would occur, you believe that it would trigger that portion of the code that talks about a merger? Because we can dissolve our library anytime we choose, right? That could happen.
It would be a question that would have to go to the voters. So that would be a question that would go on to the ballot. Excuse me, Mayor
yeah,
Janser, Alderman Blessam. It would be a question that would go on the ballot at the next general election or special election, if that's when they choose to hold it. And the question would be, should we dissolve the Minot Public Library, or should we dissolve the Ward County Library? Should we combine the libraries?
So
is
is
also a question that would.
So just to continue, is dissolution contemplated in the law outright?
I believe so. I don't have it in front of me. I can reference it, though. We've briefed it several times. I don't believe it's explicitly mentioned, but everything that I've read where it talks about dissolving it, it's dissolved in the same manner in which it's created. It's created by the voters.
So, Mr. Mayor, and I'll vote yes, obviously, we need to continue the great work that the team has already done to head down this path. The big thing for me is that we not lose momentum on it, and that we not get to the point where we allow those that are actively working to fight this, because of whatever reason, that they win simply by making everybody tired and exhausted. And pushing it out till 2 years from now, I don't believe is the intent that at least the prior council working with the county commission had in January when we took this on. So I would encourage the team to work through it, and if it means putting it to a special election, I think we need to consider that. There's cost aspects to that. There's a lot of work that needs to be looked at there, but I don't want to see us lose the momentum if that is the direction we choose.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. And just to Alderman Blessam's point, yeah, I think we looked at it, it'd cost roughly $25,000 for a special election. So the county and the city could obviously split it. And to your point, I agree with you 100%. I think people are trying to push it off, so we do lose momentum. But if you put it to the taxpayers that, hey, if we combine these two and you could save a potential of $4 million for Ward County over a 10-year period, I think they'd spend the $12,000 to save that money, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Item 7.4 is a budget amendment to purchase monitors for dispatch and for the purchase to be allowed the purchase to be completed. And there's a typo in the agenda. It's supposed to be prior to second reading, not prior to first reading. That would be a little tough to do.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve as recommended.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Blessam.
Thank you. So this comes to us from the 911 committee. We held a discussion there and talked about this. I reached out to you, Dave, and it looks like you guys were able to find a little bit cheaper version. The amount that we approved was $2,700 per monitor. Just to be clear, I believe the dollars eventually are coming from the funds allocated to the 911 world. So this budget amendment allows things to move its way through and take care of that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, This is the formality of appropriating the funds. So the funds will come from the county depreciation fund, I think is what they call it, but we have to appropriate it for the expenditure.
Okay,
I think these are nice monitors for $2,000 a piece.
okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Okay, we have the motion and the second. Go ahead and vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
We move on to item 7.5, which is an alcohol beverage license for Farmers Union Oil, DBA Interbase Resources. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
Moved by Alderman Fuller,
Second.
second by Alderman Samuelson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's cast our votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
That brings us to Section 8. Section 8 is personal appearances. And the way that works is if you'd like to provide public comment during a council meeting, you have to submit a speaker's card. They are down on the table to the left there. It has to include your name and address. The address will be held confidentially, and it has to include the topic that you wish to speak on. Individuals must submit the speaker card to the city clerk, and a speaker card may be submitted to the city clerk in advance of the meeting. Missing information from the speaker card disqualifies the individual from speaking. Each individual will be allotted 5 minutes to make comments. The individual will be notified when their 5 minutes have expired. There will be a clock counting down on the monitor. The 5-minute limit may be extended by a majority vote of the city council. All comments must address the topic identified on the card, must be pertinent to the city of Minot and fall under the authority of the city council, must be directed to the council as a whole. Comments may not be defamatory, abusive, harassing, or unlawful, may not include information that is exempt or confidential under North Dakota Open Records Law, and may not interfere with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Individuals will not have access to the city's audiovisual technology unless pre-approved by staff, and individuals may not yield their allotted time to somebody else. We have a first speaker is Joan Habacher, and she is talking about the $500,000 to Minot State University.
Mayor, City Council, I have to say I'm really disappointed in you guys that decided that it was okay to give $500,000, $500,000 to the MSU for this engineering program. The reason being, when I went to college, I paid for my own way, okay? I didn't pay for somebody else. If I want to pay for somebody else's college, I'll give them the money. I don't appreciate you guys telling me I have to. This money's to set up this program, as well as my understanding it's also for scholarships. That's not you to say I have to do this. That's not the way my money should be sent. You're telling those also who never went to college that they have to fund somebody else's college education. I don't agree with that. And I'm betting, and I know actually that there are a lot of others that don't either, because we've talked about it. So also then those who paid their own way completely, they too are supposed to fund somebody else's education. Not right. So I just would like to ask you to reconsider this and vote differently. The only other thing I would like to mention is thank you to Brecca Kramer and a couple of the others who spoke into this mic very well hearing. A couple of us back there, for some of them that are stepped back, and you may be moderately close, but you're not close enough to get the sound back to the back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker is Billy Gunderson, talking about ADA requirements.
Mayor Chancer, council members. The first photo here is at the North Dakota State Fair. I'd like to give a special thank you to Candy Mickelson for helping make this possible. There's now seating in the All Seasons Arena. Second photo, please. Next photo. No residents should have to privately negotiate with property owners over federal violations at Citizens Alley. Owner and engineer Ryan Ackerman told me to just call him to change things. Treating a legal violation as a personal favor. He has failed to fix restroom door, serving Prairie Sky Breads, The Weekender, Joe's Italian, and Citizens Alley since July 10, 2025, despite admitting it's a 15-minute fix. The ADA building code violation, building official Luke Telema has recognized as a violation. The guardrail not having a handrail is now bordered with a bench and a table. The city operates with a good old boys club, expecting private favors instead of a lawful enforcement. Next photo. At the Renaissance Zone review meeting, I addressed the main entrance threshold at Ebenezer's, and ADA push button was completed in August 2025 using the facade program, but the threshold still violates building codes. The board chair claimed that they lack authority to penalize owners, but the building official can. If code compliance is a requirement for public funding, they absolutely must enforce it. City official Brian Billingsley stated downtown buildings follow existing codes, noting building official Luke Telema is responsible for enforcement, as is the federal government. This is a 3-inch threshold that's been cut for the Whiskey 9 building. Next photo. Almost all 5 of those entrances do not meet ADA requirements for a door or a building code. Next photo. This is the Minot Planning Commission. This table is so far to the right. Again, I cannot be seen. Again, here, I cannot be seen by all council members. At the July 15, 2026 meeting, Chair Dustin Offerdahl said the federal laws will still apply for parking. The city is not enforcing handicap parking. Almost every parking lot downtown does not have handicap parking. Next slide. I addressed Art Space Lofts violating not having ADA requirements for parking. Building official Luke Telema communicated to Art Space that it was compliant with it opening in 2013. It was not. Federal law requires handicap parking in every type of parking provided, not just the minimum 2%. Art Space has accessible spots inside the garage, but do not provide spots in the outdoor lot. Next slide. Next slide. Will you go back to the first slide, please? Second slide. Thank you. Due to my disability, I've been bullied and harassed requesting reasonable accommodations for a handicap parking space. I was given 2 parking spaces in the garage. These notes were left outside of my planter. Now Ascend Wellness is now hosting a free parking event July 25th at Citizens Alley that does not meet ADA requirements for occupancy permit and has a recognized building code violation with the intent to photograph and videograph to promote for North Dakota tourism. I told Jessica Schlosser of North Dakota Wellness that hosting public events at Sports on Top with no elevator was exclusionary. She replied, "Life is not fair," and focused on attendance for Ascend Wellness Fit. 1 week later, Danny McDonald of Lotus Degree hosted an event there. After I posted that these events violate civil rights, both Jess and Danny blocked me from their personal and business social media pages to hide the discrimination.
Ms. Gunderson, your time has expired.
May I please have 30 seconds?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Both Jess and Danny blocked me from their personal and business social media pages to hide the discrimination and remove me from being aware of public events they host. Danny hosted another at Sports on Top yesterday. Hosting public events at Sports on Top with no elevator is functionally no different than saying whites only. Hosting an event at Citizens Alley with ADA compliance, without ADA compliance, is the exact same as separate, substandard water fountains. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. We are close to 2 hours. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back and finish up with miscellaneous and discussion items.
Excuse me, are we done with public appearances then?
I don't have any
First
other
appearances.
slips.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, was there anyone else who was intending to speak, just to make sure?
5 minutes. continue with number 9 on our agenda.
Missing Eric right now. And
Taking yours, Tom.
Maybe onto his car or something.
You can have mine.
Oh, no, I thought I undid your monitor.
Do you need the charger?
You could have mine because I'm done too, so.
Oh, no, I've got a charger.
Oh, okay.
Can you two get it?
I'm 100%, so.
What?
I need to step in.
What, you can say.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. So the next item on our agenda is a budget question and answer. This is an opportunity for members of the city council to ask questions of the staff about the budget that has been proposed by the city manager. This is not a public hearing on the budget. That will take place, I believe it's on September 21st. City Clerk, is that correct?
Actually, council members, Mayor Janser, we'll probably need to look by August 3rd to possibly changing the public hearings. It's my understanding that the mayor will be gone for the first one, which we had planned for on September 14th. And then Jenna, the comptroller, will be gone the second reading one, which would have been September 28th. So on the August 3rd meeting, we'll probably have a recommendation to move them to the regular city council meetings, but have the public hearings be prior to consent, which would allow the public to come, have the public hearing, have any discussion on the budget, but then if they choose not to stay for the remainder of the meeting, they would be able to leave at that time. So trying to give as much,
Bang for your buck.
yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of a work in progress, but there will be a public hearing on the budget scheduled for sometime later in the process, more than likely in September. Okay, so the floor is open for questions of staff and so forth on the budget. Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. All right, I guess I'll start. So I don't know who's going to answer this, Tom or Dave. Field it however you guys want. So the very first thing that I saw when I looked at the budget is it says the general fund decreases by roughly 7.7 million from 26 to 27. We're calling those cuts or reductions, right? When I looked through it though, I had a hard time finding, did we actually cut the general fund budget by 7.7 million? Or did we move some money around, or 7.66 million, sorry. The general fund budget decreases by that amount. Where did the cuts come from? If those are actual cuts, because I didn't see $7 million worth of cuts. Now, I saw some funding sources that weren't there, but did we actually reduce the general fund budget? We did not.
I don't think so. City Finance Director, can you speak to that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the biggest item was the funding that was included in the 2026 budget for the PD remodel of nearly $5 million.
Okay. And so if I can continue, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor. So Dave, also I noticed in there the 6.25 million from Hub City funding wasn't put in the general fund. Where is that reallocated to this year?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Fuller, that is being allocated towards the 3rd Street project.
Okay, so we took that money from general fund from last year and we're putting it towards the 3rd Street Bridge. How about, last year we also said in the budget, we moved $1 million from economic development or sales tax in there, which I know that money didn't actually move, but this year we're dropping it to 75,000. Why are we not giving that money over there to the general fund this year?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just to go back to the last question, the 3rd Street project is the 3rd Street reconstruction project, not the bridge project.
Thank you.
So that's a project that will be underway in 2027. the transfer to general fund that you're referencing from the economic development, that's the administration portion of that. We have increased this year all of the administrative transfers from the special revenue funds.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I guess this one's maybe more for you. Besides, obviously the very first thing that we did is we said, hey, we're going to raise property tax by 33%. So did we review spending reductions, like serious spending reductions, deferring projects, organizational changes, or even revenue reallocations as alternatives to raising property tax? And if we did, why did we shoot those down?
The property tax, in terms of what I proposed, the difference was predominantly less dependence on general fund cash reserves. That's the difference, right? So.
Well, I understand that, but you're saying we're going to make up, instead of using the general fund, we're going to raise property taxes. Did we look at all the alternatives instead of raising property taxes? Did we look at seriously doing some spending reductions? I mean, because honestly, I didn't see a ton of spending reductions overall. I mean, I know you gave each of the departments a, hey, minus 3% target. How many of them actually met that 3% target and are presented in your budget?
So as I presented last, Mayor Janser, Alderman Fuller, so the vast majority met the target. So we, as I mentioned, increases to the police department were the most significant, some increases to fire department, and then there were reductions through most of the other departments. And as I mentioned last week, the significant reductions, as Finance Director Dave Lakefield mentioned, was taking the $5 million out of cash fund reserves that were targeted for the police department renovation in 2027, reducing street maintenance almost 10% from $10 million to $9.1 million, and then 12 unfunded positions. So those were the significant reductions.
They're unfunded, but they're still within the budget, right?
I have identified them, and what I propose to council is that they be considered as unfunded yet required. And if we believe over time that they are required, we need to bring them back to council and ask for a budget amendment and be able to defend that.
Okay, so ultimately, I mean, we're not going to fund them, but you're going to tell us if we need them, we're going to have to fund them.
That could
so,
be.
I mean, that's not a cut in my mind. That's just saying, hey, we're not going to do this right now. We're just going to do it later in the year when we bring it back to you and say we got to have it.
You could look at it that way, but some of these we have not experienced the time to determine what the impact is on services with a reduction in that personnel. So to me, it's just the prudent course of action until we know what the reduction in those services are, and maybe they're limited, right? And at that point, I think that could be considered as a full-time reduction of personnel, of position.
Okay. Dave, at the end of last year, what was our general fund cash reserves unrestricted? Do you know I mean, and I don't need exact, just a rough number.
I believe we had a slide on that. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking it was right around we're anticipating it'll be right around 25 million at the end of 2026.
Okay,
That's
so
our
at
forecast.
2026, we'll have 25 million. And does that include our 1/12 and our 2/12 on top of that? Or, I mean, are the operating is not in that, correct?
That would be all inclusive.
Okay. Tom, one of the things I did notice in here, so our consultants and professional service spending appears to increase across multiple departments quite a bit. Help me understand the consulting contracts over $50,000 and explain, I mean, we have a large city staff. Explain why our city staff can't handle some or more of these in a way or to be able to cut some of that professional services out of there.
Mayor Janser, Alderman Fuller, bottom line, we contract out when we either don't have the capacity or we don't have the competency. So on specific questions, on particular ones, we can review those with you and pull that out and look at what the detail is in Munis to further explain and have that discussion. But in general, we don't have the capacity on the staff to conduct it, or we don't have the competency to conduct that particular action.
Okay. I guess for me right now, that'll be
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I do have one more. So
Go ahead.
Let's play the what if game, because we always like to play that up here. So what if council completely rejects this full tax increase? What's the city's plan then?
So we can, some of the, Mayor Janser, Alderman Fuller, so some of the alternatives that I presented last week, we could continue the reliance on general fund cash reserves for operational expenses, although we recommend not to do that, but that is an option. We could look at further reducing personnel expenses by executing a voluntary separation incentive program. And that the intent on that would be for council to give me the authority to execute such a program. We would ask for applications from our staff. This could motivate some people who are considering retiring anyway, retiring early. It's a program that has been used in the federal government, was used significantly over the past 18 months. In that particular program, what I'd recommend is that we would offer an incentive that would actually incentivize people to depart up to 3 months of their base salary, and then have discussions on replacing, in terms of do we combine positions and look at better ways to do that. We discussed this a bit with council. We had these discussions, about 6 months ago. This is a way to encourage attrition, vice having a reduction in force type of program that would be not voluntary. So this would be a voluntary program for some personnel who may be considering departing the city. This could help them make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Alderman Pottergula.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to publicly ask Mr. Lakefield, our finance director, something I asked privately. We've heard a lot about there being a 30% increase in property taxes, and that's worrisome to me. For one thing, it seems like it goes against what the legislature had adopted, which generally is 3% with lots of asterisks and exemptions to it, and certainly would be hard for me to swallow given my things I've said during the campaign that I very much want to keep a lid on taxes. So could Dave explain to us publicly what you explained to me privately about percent increase? I thought that was supposed to be limited by state law and by what a lot of us have talked about.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just for a little refresher, the legislation that was passed in the last session imposed a 3% increase. However, it had a look back that you had look back the last 3 tax years, and that would set the high water mark for the tax levy. It also provided for some other additions and subtractions. For example, you were able to add new value that came onto the tax rolls in that time frame. There's some adjustments for debt that is serviced by levy that comes out in the calculation. So it's 3%, but there's some caveats that come with it.
The asterisks.
So the high water mark here would be looking back to the city's 2024 levy, and then calculating the increase on top of that is how we'd calculate the 3% limit.
And for my edification then of the public, what are the amounts that we're talking about for the high water mark, so to speak, and as opposed to last year's amount?
Yeah, the high water mark in 2024 was about 28.5 million. 25 was just over 24 million, and the 26 year was $20.1 million.
So the 3% cap would be on the tax for 2024, which is 28 million.
Generally, yeah, that's
Generally.
correct. Yeah.
And that cap, 3%, is on overall collections. It's not necessarily on each person's personal property tax or the city's portion of it.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, that's a nuance that we should point out more often, that the cap applies to the entire amount of dollars that the city levies each year, not to individual properties. So each person's property can change based on changes in value, but also their proportionate share of the overall value of the city. So the city's levy could go down. For example, say it went down 10%. That doesn't mean that an individual property will decrease by 10%. That all comes out in the math with whatever their valuation is compared to the total valuation of the city.
Thank you.
Further questions? Oh,
I
Alderman
guess
Alderman Potter.
Thank you. There's a couple of other things I wanted to clarify. Again, I apologize. I'm not so good with money numbers. Just to be sure everybody's clear about this and we have the context, the city's portion of somebody's property tax for next year as proposed would be 30%, and the school's portion, they're the highest levier, would be 42%.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, generally that's correct. Those numbers were calculated based on 2026 levy numbers, so we're not sure what the other
okay.
taxing entities are going to propose for 27. So that can change slightly based on the math with whatever is proposed by the other entities. We know that the park districts will decrease because of the sales tax ordinance that was passed, so that'll skew those numbers a little bit as well.
So when people are concerned about property taxes, as they should be, the primary blame, I guess, if you want to assign it, would go to the schools because they collect the most of it. And then the park district, the city's next, and the park district and the county.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, yeah, they have the largest portion of the tax burden.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to be critical of them or blame them. And they've also, I think, historically deficit financed and drawn on reserves for years. Is that your understanding too?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, I believe at least the last few years they have relied on reserves to balance their budget as well.
Okay. So in a sense, they've kept their property tax levy artificially low, as we have too, because we've relied on reserves lately.
I believe that's accurate.
Okay. The public needs to understand that maybe they think they're getting a good deal or been led to believe they're getting a good deal, but the ultimate cost is still the same, and at some point the piper calls for his money.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, generally, yes, but there are some other nuances that come into play with school financing in North Dakota because there are caps, limits, mill levy limits, and other things that come into effect. So generally, yes, but it's a lot more complicated than that.
That's what I'm gathering. And next time when I ask, I'll take more aspirin so I don't get as much of a headache. And final question, I think, even if we approve the proposed budget, which we may not, would we still be the lowest of the 6 large cities in the state in terms of overall tax burden per capita, the overall money that comes out of citizens' pocketbooks?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, so the information that was presented on the city manager's presentation, if we took the numbers from 2026 and just calculated what was proposed and added that information on there compared to the other cities for 2026, we would still be the lowest price or the lowest tax burden of the 6 largest cities in the state.
It's interesting to me because I've heard several people come and in some of these emails that I've received, they say they're moving or have moved out of town because of lower taxes. Well, one person, a particular physician, claimed he moved to Bismarck because the taxes here were too high, and he claimed he was paying less in property taxes in California. I was a little skeptical.
So, Mr. Mayor and Alderman Padrigula, just to be clear, so when the information that was presented is the total tax burden, so it includes special assessments, sales tax, and property taxes all combined. So, in particular, special assessments, the difference between property tax and a special assessment is we happen to be making an improvement in your neighborhood, so instead of spreading that across the entire tax base of the entire city, it gets divided amongst the properties that benefit from the special improvement. On the surface, that sounds great. However, when we do things like street seal, chip seals, sidewalk repairs, those types of things, then it's just a matter of when we come through your neighborhood, to do that type of work. And then things like the geographical, geopolitical turmoil that we're experiencing now, if it's your year for a chip seal and the price of crude oil is much higher, you potentially get a higher bill than somebody not so far away that has the luxury of having those repairs done in their neighborhood when prices are more favorable. If one is better than the other, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a cost that the city is paying out for those services that has to be spread out under some fashion, whether it's through the assessment against the property values, or if we create districts and assess it against the benefiting properties individually.
One final question. Somebody raised a concern that city salaries for city employees are going up 7% this next year. Is that accurate or not?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padagula, I think as a matter of fact, the number that we have in the budget overall, total dollars is about an increase in total dollars of 0.85%.
So less than 1%.
So that's correct, and I'll caveat that a little bit that we could have, because of the way our pay system works, an individual on the system can see an increase more than that. Others will see increases much less than that as well. And also what's included in this is the reduction for the 12 positions that are not funded. It comes off of the top of that. There's some changes in how we calculated this. We limited any open positions are only included in the budget at step 1, not anything above that. So if we're looking at bringing somebody on to the city and they have a wealth of experience and education and all of the things that come with that, right now what we currently have in the budget is step 1 for that position. So anything, if we were to bring somebody on over and above that, we would have to make accommodations in the budget.
I want to make sure I heard you right. You said the overall budget for payroll is 0.18% or higher?
0.85%.
So less than 1%. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Blessing.
Thank you. So there was a bunch of stuff in there, and Dave, you know, I've followed everywhere you went. So, but I want to be clear about a few pieces there. First of all, this is the 3rd budget cycle that I've been a part of, and I think, and I'm proud to say, we've been pushing hard. You know, the councils that I've been a part of have been trying to move the needle for the people of this city because their burdens are high. So yes, we can look at the tax burdens per capita and all the different pieces that go with that, but it's expensive to live in this city, whether it's rent, homes, whatever that is. And where we fall in the list of the other cities, to me, isn't as material as can people actually make ends meet. And so after now the 3rd cycle, really, because we're not done with this, but we're getting towards the end, the best we can do with the kind of pressure that I don't know that you'll find a council that's pushed harder. I mean, really. The best we can do, as I pointed out in the last meeting, is essentially get to break even. And that's a tough message to me because, you know what, I run a business, my wife and I run a household. If we're in that position, we can make tough decisions. We can find a way to cut 20% if that's what it takes. What I've found so far is that for most minds, the city, that's an impossibility. Best we can do is slow down the growth. That's the best we can do. I don't agree. And so, you know, I don't have a lot of questions tonight. I've been able to get with Dave and get a few of them answered. I've got other stuff that I'll continue to ask one-on-one. But one of the things that I want to point out is that we are left in the position that we were last year, which is where we got a budget that said, hey, we want to spend $28.5 million in property tax. The council doesn't want that. Well, it better find the places to cut it. So now if the council wants to come down, we've got to find the sledgehammer again to figure out where we take the big swatches out of this budget. And personally, I don't like that. I think the experts we've got running departments along with senior leadership in the city are a much better judge of where the right place to find a couple $1 million is, but that's unfortunately not where we are. So what's going to happen as we move towards approval here, as we go through the sessions where we actually do the proposals, believe me, I'll be back with the proposals that I've had in prior years to take big, wide cuts in what's going on. And unfortunately, I am of the belief, as many are here, that we cannot continue going into reserves. I was okay with doing reserves up until this point because I knew it would get us to this point where we no longer could do it. And it's the only way to actually get anybody to pay attention and do something about it. So this council, if I have my way, will do something about it. And we will find those cuts because the people don't deserve this increase. I want to also be clear for those that are railing on the use of reserves in the first place, because I want to be clear about what's been spent. I'm going to talk about $14 million here for a couple seconds. $14 million over the last 2 cycles that I've been a part of. Half of that, over $7 million, are a direct result of our auditors finding that we were above the state law requirement for what we could even hold in reserves. So I had motions over 2 budgets to return that cash. Alderman Pittner last year decided, hey, let's finish the job and get the last of the $7 million done. So that's how we got all the way to 20.1. Last year, we would have been somewhere closer to 22 had he not jumped onto that bandwagon and said, look, enough's enough, let's get this done and get it back to the people. That's 7 million of the 14 million. Another 5 in reserve spending is allocated to the police department to rebuild it. As multiple councils now have agreed needs to get done, we had meetings today talking about that again, about a direction that we will take with the police department. So that brings us over 12 million of that 14 million that I'm talking about. Another 1.8 of it was used to fund police officers that our chief has done a great job in recruiting and getting on the force. We didn't fund those last year. We just talked about 3 unfunded police officers in the city manager's budget. Last year, I think that was 11, if I remember right, or somewhere in that range. 12? Yeah, so it was 12 last year. Well, you know what happens when you don't have a funded position and then you fill it? You need a budget amendment to actually pay the wages. So there's another 1.8 million from reserves that's going to get spent. So I would ask the people that are railing about the use of reserves, is there anything in what I just said that you wouldn't agree with that we've used reserves to pay for? Over $14 million in the last 2 years. That's money back in the pockets of our residents that are floating through our economy and making sure that this city works the way that it does. Not from an organizational perspective, the city side, but the actual residents on the street. And so I would say to the rest of the council, I hope you have questions about the budget, and I hope that you are open to the things, the harder decisions that we will now start to make. I wish that we had the staff bringing those, but unfortunately this budget doesn't have that. It has some, it has a few of those unfunded positions, but we're gonna have to dig deeper to do the work for the city. Now, I could be wrong. The council may decide that they don't agree with my approach. The council could decide that 26.5 makes sense, and away we go. And the people are just gonna have to take it. And you know what? That's how politics works. Elections have consequences. And so if that's the decision that's made, then that's where we'll go. And I'll continue to fight and to push every single year to get there. So Mr. Mayor, if I could, that's sort of my speech on the budget tonight. I wanted to point out one other item because it's been a hot topic this week and it is budget related, and I can do it as a motion if you'd like. But the thing I'd like to ask, we just went through another round of mosquito control. And we've gotten a lot of feedback, and I talked to Mr. Banfield a little bit earlier, and his team's doing a fabulous job on this. I have no worry that we are doing our due diligence to get there. But one of the things that I wanted to mention for the public's benefit, and I had this same concern last year, I am not a fan of using NALAD as our main method for this, okay? The European Union has outlawed it. They don't use it in mass spray jobs like this. I would like to ask, and the main reason I bring it up in the budget context is that if we need to do something different for 2027, that we get that information in time to include it in the budget so that we can do what we can to control our mosquito population. Understanding that we live in North Dakota and we're subject to wet seasons and dry seasons and everything that goes with it, I think that we can continue to fulfill some of that responsibility. but I would like to see us look at additional options or different options that get us out of the spray. And so, as I said, Mr. Mayor, I could make a motion to direct staff to do that, or I see Tom nodding. I've talked to Brian. They're working on this stuff anyway,
Yeah.
so I feel comfortable with that, but I would want to know if there's a budgetary adjustment we need to make.
Yeah, I guess if staff knows that, great. I've talked to Brian about it as well. And the, the issue is changing as well because, as you know, we used to get the Air Force back here like once before the state fair and then again in middle of August or so, depending on the counts and depending on the year. But the Air Force is having some changes of their operation as well, and I think it's pretty clear that we got our one spray a week or so ago, and they're not going to be back this summer, from what I understand. So we do have to adapt and look to some other methodologies, whether that be application method and or use of some other chemical or whatever we use to get rid of them. So, I mean, Brian, do you want to kind of give us where we are with this?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Blessum, we are doing exactly that. We've had contracted out a service provider to assist us with vetting out the alternatives. Unfortunately, there is a 2-year process for us to go through the IRT, the Innovative Readiness Training process for the federal government, for us to procure services from the Air Force, more specifically the Ohio Reserves, to support us in our mosquito spraying mission set. So those dates are essentially set 2 years in advance. So that's where it really gets into this alternative option. We're looking for a little more flexibility. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want to get rid of an option that we do have with the Air Reserves because they're free. We pay chemicals. At $103,000, I will argue that we are seeing a CPI increase of anywhere between 4.1 to 4.8% for each of the barrels, so that does come at a cost. However, one of the alternatives we are looking at right now is relatively comparable. It's about 120% of what we would pay for those chemical barrels to support the aerial mission. Now, is it going to be successful? We're going to have to wait and see. In the next 3 weeks, it's likely we're going to have to activate part of the ground dispersal spraying due to a lack of a secondary mission set from the Air Reserves. They're not going to be able to spray overhead. So because of that, it's likely we are going to go and do a ground dispersal trial to go ahead and see what effects it's going to have on the mosquito population that we're seeing today.
Yeah, this is really it's a quality of life issue in the summer in North Dakota.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I don't agree. In my opinion, we do not spray for quality of life. We spray for TB. We spray to make sure that we do not have people get very sick. And so my next question was going to be, have we seen any outbreaks anywhere that would lead us to believe that, yes, it's annoying. We all agree with that. We get it. But the problem that I've got is that the chemicals that we use and the ones that we would even do ground spraying, the ramifications of those can be as bad or worse as a few mosquito bites for sure. And we have to be very careful about what it is that we're treating. So do we have any cases that we are tracking right now in this region of the country?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Blessum, we are not tracking any cases. However, in the past, we have not done a great job at doing PCR tests locally because we didn't have that option. It came at a cost. We've since partnered with First District Health and the Health and Human Services Lab out of Bismarck to assist with these batch testing. We have about 50 batch tests a year that they all authorize us to use at free of cost. So it really helps us out. Right now we have 3 outstanding batch tests that are due in the next few weeks. We have an additional 11 to 12 that are going to be going out due to high mosquito counts we're seeing currently.
Okay. And again, I assume in there's other things, malaria, there's other pieces, but the point is that for me, that is why we spray. We are not spraying because you're going to get a couple bites at the state fair. Yes, it's annoying, and yes, I'd love that if there was an all-natural option that didn't make people sick. And if you find those, that's the stuff I want to hear about. you know, as I've mentioned to others, you know, places like Walt Disney World do a great job with this without spraying chemicals anywhere. They use very novel means to take care of this stuff. And I would hope that we can take a look at some of those things, because then we can get to quality of life questions. But this kind of spraying is not for quality of life. This is to keep people out of the hospital.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman
Brian,
Martin.
can you talk about the number of, the count numbers that you were finding, say, a month ago or 3 weeks ago, and right around spraying time at your traps?
Mayor Janser, Alderman McMartin. So when we first kicked it off, first week of June, we were seeing numbers in the double digits, and this was citywide. We had just started out the new service provider. He was testing in all 4 quadrants, so we can go ahead and localize exactly where we're seeing growth when it comes to, or increases when it comes to mosquitoes. In the subsequent weeks to follow, we saw a steady increase, which right the week prior to the fair, we actually saw numbers in the thousands in each of the quadrants of the city, to the tune of about 4,800 as of Monday prior to the fair. Tuesday we were at 4,500. Wednesday when we sprayed for the mosquitoes themselves, we actually saw a drastic decrease, a 72% reduction. It dropped down to about 1,250 mosquitoes. And unfortunately, with what happens in normal years, we ended up seeing another increase a couple days later. We're right back up to where we were at, which is, again, why we were considering a ground mission this time.
So, tongue-in-cheek, does that mean Mystic Mountain, if that's what it's called down at Disney, is nothing but a big citronella candle?
Mayor Janser, Alderman McMartin, I would not want to speculate.
Alderman Blessum, did you get your question answered?
I did.
Okay. Alderman Pottergula.
If I could piggyback on what John and Mike have said, I've gotten concerns from citizens both ways. I mean, everybody complains it's annoying. Other people are very concerned about the environmental impact and the health impact. And health impact goes 2 ways. As a psychologist, I'm very concerned about people's neurological functioning, and things like West Nile and Zika and other transmissible diseases through mosquitoes can be devastating to people. So even one case can be enough for a community. The other side of it is we seem to be promoting pollinators and natural farming and things like that, and it seems to be at odds to recommend things that kill bees and other pollinators and yet try to encourage their growth and use. I think we should be consistent with that if possible. I'd be very concerned about mass ground spraying, having grown up in places that had that. You did not want to go outside. It was very unpleasant, and in retrospect, I think probably very dangerous, much more so than we realized. So you've answered, and I wanted to compliment Mike on his good questioning. You've answered most of the questions I've had. The only other thought would be, can the city put, and I hate to ask this with Jennifer being short-staffed, put something on their website about at least links to state health department and other reliable sources of information about what citizens can do to protect themselves. From what I've been reading, citronella is useless, but there are other things out there that are safe and effective when applied in a small region. Is there any chance we could kind of put something on Facebook or somewhere out there linking people with reliable info?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Pottergula, we actually, at the start of the campaign this year, did release information regarding EPA requirements or recommendations. So there is a link out there already on Facebook that is available for staff, for
I'm
community.
not good on Facebook, sorry.
Secondary, you did make mention that we want to start looking at alternative methods and usage of the chemicals to prevent any sort of harm to pollinator farms. As part of this 2-year process, we do end up, prior to the event itself, reach out to the local pollinator farms to make them aware of what is coming, the weeks that we are going to be spraying. We put out a Minot Daily News ad identifying the couple weeks prior that we are going to be spraying during this time, giving them reference to the EPA links to go ahead and help guide them in the right direction of what they can do for their families if they are concerned with it. Lastly, and I think one of the items that is the most important, During the event itself, we do not spray in any way, shape, or form different than what the EPA recommends for that specific chemical listed under the MSDS or the Materials Safety Data Sheet. We spray at specific times of night to ensure that they do not affect other specific pollinators or other species. The way we disperse the chemical itself from above, the aerial dispersal, is actually set to a molecule size so small that it's really only intended to affect mosquitoes or bugs of that size. Again, not harming bees, dragonflies, or even monarch butterflies, I think, as we've seen in the past from other locations.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Blessing.
Thank you. So if I could, I think based on what Brian has just said, I think I will make a motion to direct staff to put together an alternative program moving forward no later than the end of September of this year, our second meeting in September. And the main reason for that is if we are already subject to losing our second spray, even for those that believe this is the right path, we better figure out a new alternative. Okay, and my perspective is I want something that's less harmful. And so that's my motion, that they report back to us on their ongoing plan.
I'll second that.
No later than the second meeting in September.
Okay, we have motion and a second on the floor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I guess we're ready to vote.
You keep saving my ass.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right, any other discussion on the budget? If not, we will move on and go to item 10, which is liaison reports. We'll start with Alderman Fuller.
In the last month, I sat down with the firefighters union 2 times and talking about their benefits and some of the stuff that they have concerns on. Ward County Planning Commission sat down and met with Trinity a second time. I've had 3 budget meetings. We had a library board meeting and a library merger meeting. So,
Okay, thank you. Alderman McMartin, have you had a chance to,
Well, I've got one coming up this week, and Brian gave me an update of what's going to be happening, but the Renaissance Board has a meeting this Thursday at 9, and they'll be reviewing 2 facade improvement program applications. Last week, I had my first Visit Minot meeting, and there is a meeting set up with several members of the Visit Minot Board and the State Board, I believe it, the State Fair Board in the next day or 2. I don't remember. I check my calendar before I go to bed.
thank you. Alderman Samuelson.
Had a couple of budget meetings. Last Thursday, I just made the Ward County Planning Commission meeting after our special city council meeting. And that's all I got to report this time.
Thank you very much. Mine were included in my mayor's report. Alderman Locken.
I have my first meeting with the Center to go to MPO on Thursday, so I start then.
Okay. Alderman Blessing.
Commission on Aging meeting last week. One of the things that reported there was that the city manager's budget contemplates a 3% reduction in their funding. And so just wanted to make sure they were alerted to that and that they began planning with that likelihood in place. That's really about it. 911 is out for a couple months, and that's all I've got.
Okay. Alderman Padregula.
Thank you. The committees I've been assigned to have not met, so I've not had a chance to present anything. I did start my orientation to the Public Library Board. I spent 2.5 hours with the director and got a tour of the building, met with many staff members, completed reviewing a thick packet of orientation materials, and I'm set to attend the first board meeting tomorrow. I also have meetings with various department heads scheduled, and the prior week I spent 21 and a half hours in formal meetings regarding the budget. Most were entire council meetings, and that doesn't include phone calls, emails. And speaking of emails, I wanted to apologize to the 17 people who wrote to me regarding the city budget. I've been having some quirks with my software and have not been able to respond to them, so please don't get too upset with that. But I'm very dependent on that. I have my own kind of motor problems and just can't type a decent letter to somebody. So I will try to get those resolved as soon as possible and try to respond as best as I can. And I will start attending meetings when they start being held.
Thank you very much. Alderman Blessing, you had something further?
Sorry about that. I missed one update. We've scheduled the next ALPR meeting for the 28th at 4 p.m. And so we'll be continuing that process with the PD on that date.
Okay. That is, concludes our liaison reports. We're on to item number 10, or excuse me, 11.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We're adjourned.